What's up, ladies and gentlemen? I'm Rod Murray, and welcome to the War Room. All right, was this an extension of our show, our draft day show on linebackers? This time, Nate and myself are joined by Adam and Donovan. All right, they will help us today, kind of delve into more of our conversation about linebackers, and then we'll actually step into the War Room for our first pick. Where we've identified three candidates or prospects that's been associated with the Washington football team for some time, and then we'll do a little exercise, a little flip. So hope our two guests are prepared. Nate, how we doing?
What's going on? It's linebacker week. It's a hot topic of discussion on social media right now. So I'm ready to dive into it. And we brought on two of the best in the business to talk about it. So let's get going.
Absolutely, absolutely. So we've seen a couple pro days since our episode, right? So we saw Notre Dame had their pro day, Tulsa had their pro day. So before we actually get into that, I do want to leave the floor to Donovan and Adam, where my manners. Introduce yourselves and just kind of say what are you doing on the Washington football team scene.
Yeah, so my name is Donovan. I've been working with Josh Taylor a little bit. We've been diving into the draft and free agents, especially. Specializing in O-line a little bit. I love my Hogs. Just really excited to be here, man. Really excited.
Yeah, I'm Adam Aniba with the Burgundy and Gold Report. I also work with Josh coming out. We did a few episodes together. I have Football Garbage Time is our weekly show with Haikun where we discuss all fantasy, all goings around the league. Currently also now on the Washington Brawl with Parker Hamlet and Rio, and we're doing all things Washington. We had Logan Paulson on the other night. But mainly burgundyandgoldreport.com. Just putting out prospect cards, virtual cards. One-touch access to get full videos, full highlights, full evaluations. But yeah, it's all about Washington football and draft at this time, guys.
There it is, man. There again. So again, welcome. I'm looking forward to a great episode. I've been following both of you guys' information. Donovan, I just, like I said, got put on to you through Josh, like literally last night. And I said I've been loving the insight I'm seeing. And you're also a former football player, man. So it always tip my hat to individuals that know the game and having a good time talking about it as well. So let's get into this linebacker class, gentlemen. All right, we've seen over the last couple of days, as I said before, got a little excited there, but the pro days have come out. We've seen a lot of linebackers tied to our name, right? And the conversation that we were having before we got on with Zaven Collins. So I think it's safe to jump in with him and just kind of get your insight on him.
Yeah, I think
Go ahead, man. You go ahead.
Zaven Collins, man, he's a freak. I mean, he's a freak in nature. 6'4", 260. I love the way he plays. He plays with an attitude, and he plays with a chip on his shoulder. And a lot of times, the chip on his shoulder can kind of, knock a guy off their path, and it doesn't happen with him. He is really versatile, and he showed that at Tulsa. And I think it'd be a great piece for the Washington defense. I really do.
And I'd add a caveat before you wax poetic about your boy. Do you think Sam linebacker is a dying position in the league? Sam linebacker seems like, defenses don't play in base anymore. They play less than 30% of the time in base. So often Sams aren't even on the field, but a lot of people project Collins as a Sam. Some project him as an edge. Some project him as an inside linebacker. So what would you say to Sam dying? And how do you think Collins projects, I guess?
Right. There'll always be a place for it. But if we're talking about in this day and age, drafting somebody in the top 20 to play that position, I don't see it. So, when we do see these guys come off the board, Parsons, obviously, but, when we see Zaven Collins come off the board, he's not going to be strictly put in one box. And there's a reason for that. When you go look at his, Tulsa tape, you're talking about, one of the most dynamic linebackers in the country. What he does well is he sniffs out what receivers, what tight ends, what routes are being run. Everyone talks about instinctual, but it's more than instinctual with him. He's in the right place, right time. He's just a guy that, when we talk about the it factor, that's what I have. So it's not that it's a dying breed. It's just now you're going to have more players like him, not necessarily his size. The whole 6'4", 260 thing is blown out of proportion. He was asked to put on that weight. He put in nearly 50-something pounds when he stepped on the field for Tulsa by the coaches. They wanted him to be both positions. So, a true Sam, that's a guy that's going to put their hand in the dirt. They'll jump, they'll go into coverage, but this is a guy who's going to do all of it. So I think you're going to have, those more well-rounded guys and the true Sams and the true Wills. I think you're going to find more in the, later part of day 2, day 3. But if you're really committing, I can at least speak for the 4-3 because that's what Washington's running. If you're going to invest in the first round, it's going to be a guy at some point is going to be contributed to Mike or calling signals at some point, because it's just too high of a value. Just like I don't think that too much money should be invested in outside linebackers, but there'll be a need. But like you said it yourself, you're talking about 30% of the snaps now. So Collins is someone that fits perfect in the every down linebacker role.
Yeah, if I could piggyback on that, there was a little talk about Collins struggling at his pro day, but his relative athletic score, which measures all of his measurements, his combine relative to his size, which is key. He was right next to Micah Parsons. He was in the top 5 of all linebackers for testing. So testing isn't really the issue to me. I guess one question I had that I could flip over to Rod, and you can probably talk about this. You played in college as well. Two college football players here. This is nice. So a knock I had with Collins, and I don't know if you even called it a knock, is like level of competition, right? He did play some bigger schools, but overall you're playing at Tulsa. You're not playing as many Power 5 schools as you'd like. So what would you say to me if I said like that's a concern? I mean, that's something you have to talk about. Level of competition is huge. He's not an SEC guy. He's not a Big Ten guy. So what do you think, Rod?
I think at this position, if we're talking any other position, maybe more specifically quarterback, then I would give you that argument. But at the linebacker position, as Adam said, it's more instinctive, right? So what I like to see is he reading the play? What is he doing with his feet? Where is he moving to, right? How is he getting his run fits, right? That doesn't change on what level you're playing on. That's still the same thing. So with him, that wouldn't be my knock for him, as we discussed on the earlier episode. I have other reservations for Collins, but the level of competition thing isn't to me. I would say, okay, look, is he playing the level that he's playing at? Is he standing out? Like, is he a big fish in a small pond, or is he just does he not pop out on tape? And he does pop out on tape. So regardless of what he's playing at, I think that'll carry over, and I don't think it has a big knock on him at all.
Yeah. I mean, I will say he had the highest PFF coverage grade in the country among linebackers. And a lot of that it's buoyed by big plays, right? That goes into, he had a lot of turnovers, which isn't a bad thing, right? But I will say, like, he didn't have that many snaps in coverage compared to some other linebackers. If you look at someone like Jock had twice as many snaps as he did in coverage. So that's something to look at. But I don't think coverage is his weakness, if anything. I think he could be a little bit more of a sure tackler. Like, he's a big guy. He should have a big tackle radius. And what I mean by tackle radius is you cover more ground when you tackle. You have those long arms, that big body, you should be able to hit and strike. He shouldn't have the same issues that someone like Nick Bolton would have, because Nick Bolton's a smaller guy. We'll get to him in a little bit, but I'm going to segue now and talk about another guy. So I think a big trend in the NFL is like positionless football, right? We're talking about a lot of guys who can play more than one position, and they're kind of a jack of all trades because there's more and more athletic tight ends, athletic receivers, and we need guys who can do a variety of things, kind of like our favorite safety here, Cam Curl from last year. So that brings me to my next guy, Jock, who I'm sure he's a polarizing prospect too. It's kind of interesting. Him and Collins are both prospects who they have a wide range of outcomes. They could play different positions. One is oversized, one is undersized. So there's a lot of there's a dichotomy there, which is always fun to see. But Donovan, I know you like Collins more than Jock, right? I'm not sure. Do you have anything good to say about Jock, or are they kind of on par, or how are you feeling?
Yeah, I do like Jock. I really do. We talked about him a few weeks ago, and I think we mentioned his weight was a concern, which was good to see that he's about 220, 221 at his pro day, which was great to see. And Jock's a guy that I do have concerns in the box, right? There is a thing with Zaven Collins' size, and that allows him to play in that box, to take on a lineman, and take on tight ends in the blocking scheme better. But Jock is a guy that, his versatility is there. When we talk about positional football players, he's up there. I mean, we look back to Isaiah Simmons, last draft, and it's different, especially with his size and the way the Cardinals used him. But there are some concerns with Jock, just mainly on his size. But I really do think he could be a good player at the next level if he's in the right scheme that plays to his strengths and not his, weaknesses, which are more on the physical side.
Yeah, I'm definitely with you there. Adam, what do you think? What do you think most NFL teams see him as? What do they project him as on the next level? Is he a box safety? Is he a will linebacker? What do you think?
And that's the tough thing with him. So when you're putting him in that, in that level that you're going to put him with Collins, Parsons, I just think it's unfair to him in most teams, because I keep saying to Washington fans, it's not that I don't think he's a good player. I think he's a bad fit in Washington, because I think we have a bunch of these kind of hybrid guys. And I think throwing another one like that, to me, doesn't make sense, because Collins hybrid means he can put his hand in the dirt and he can rush the passer, but he can still be there. the limitations I see with JOK is I can only see so much change in his body. I see it's not about weight. Everyone focuses on weight. It's about frame. How much could he put on those hips, on those legs? How much will it affect his back pedal, his transitions? I look at Collins and I see someone that can take off that weight and probably play better. When I see JOK, I think, okay, if you want to put him in that true Mike role, I think you probably playing closer to 235. That sounds kind of big, but if he really wants to get that pound, and no matter what we say about a passing league, he's going to have to get mixed up, mix it up. So with him, I think, we talk about teams like New England, Bill Belichick, guys like that can be creative with, like, the guy I evaluated last year, Kyle Duggar. I can see him that, not comparable, like two totally different players, but I can see that same kind of usage for him. So you're talking about sub-package linebacker going to strong safety and other packages. But to me, he's a positionless player going to this draft. And I think if you're going to invest a top 20, 25 pick in that, you have to have a day one plan. That's not someone you want to develop over a year or two. If you're going to invest in that, you have to have a day one plan. On the other hand, Collins, I think if you do get him, you do have a little bit of wiggle room, because at the beginning, maybe you want to put him in his hand on the dirt and third down. You want to see how I can do in coverage. There's more things you can do. So it's about, without being long-winded, I have a Bible. It's athletic ability, play speed, competitive toughness, play strength, and clutch. And when I look at the Notre Dame kid, I see some of those traits, but not all. So that's what it comes down to for me.
Yeah, I think what you're getting at, it's something I've kind of harped on as well. I like Jock a lot, honestly. He's kind of grown on me the past few weeks, which I don't know if that's good or bad. Maybe I'm falling prey to some sort of recency.
Draft time fever. It happens.
Yeah, I'm usually good about not doing that, but I think what you're alluding to is a role redundancy. So you have Cam Curl, who kind of does the same thing, but I mean, he's nowhere near the athlete that Jock is. He's a Jock light, to be honest.
Right.
And one thing this is off topic a little bit, but like, when Curl has like the season that he had, all-time great season for a rookie, you can expect like regression to come next year. With defensive backs, there's such a range of volatility every year, so I would expect him to come down a little bit. And
I'll add that there could be potential bad blood, because that we don't know how him and Collins are going to in fact coexist together with playing the same position. That's easy fans say let's move into free safety, but I don't see that as an easy solution. Sorry.
No, it's okay. We're taking the train off the rails. It's my fault. It's always my fault. Rod knows. And I will say one thing they're not talking about, recovering from Achilles injury is a huge deal.
Huge.
No one is talking about that. You play a lot of fantasy, and I'm a degenerate too. And I have like 9 dynasty teams. Like, I know that is one of the worst injuries you can have and recover from. It you don't recover in just a year. Usually. Right. So that's something to remember. But anyway,
I'm going to tell you, it takes about 18 months.
It's bad, right?
I tore my Achilles. I know at that level, if he's put in that type of work, maybe I would say in that 16 to 18 month range where he's like what he is. He's not Adrian Peterson. He's not going to be that like freak that does that. So we'll see. But like you said, I don't think he comes back and we could say, we can make an argument he was already struggling pre-injury, right? So to come back, I'm interested to see what it is, but you still got to roll with Cam Curl at least to start the season. So, and then you just kind of fade Collins in.
Yeah. No, I'm with you. So going back to Jock real quick, because Rod, you had some really good points when we talked on the pod the other day. And my big knock on him was like what Donovan talked about, right? He had less than 220 snaps in the box the past 2 seasons at Notre Dame. He's not a block shedder. He's an alley patroller. He's a finisher. What would you say to that? Because I think he can start day one and be a weak side will linebacker and do that, plus be a slot cornerback. What do you like about him though? It's got to be that versatility. He's a chess piece.
That's the thing. Everybody says you got to be creative with him. He's a chess piece. I think he's a plug and play guy. You put him at will, and now he gives you the luxuries of moving a Cole Holcomb to the other side, right? We just had the conversation about Sam and is it still a thing, right? No, it's not a thing anymore. It's evolved, right? You got to be able to do more, like Adam said, and that's what Cole Holcomb can give you. John Bostic has done a great job in the middle. Now, if you put a solidified wheel out there that you can flex out, and maybe when you have a one tight end set with 3 wide receivers, you don't have to take a linebacker off the field now. You just move Jock out there, who still can force the edge. We know he's aggressive at the line of scrimmage. That's what I love about him a lot. We keep saying, he's a linebacker playing safety or safety playing linebacker. He's not Isaiah Simmons, far from him, right? Mentally wise, if you watch the Alabama game, the Clemson games from last year, both the Clemson game, right? He plays with the fire as a linebacker, and then he sometimes when they flex the other side, he's in the box, right? In that Notre Dame set. So he is a true linebacker fit. Yes, he's undersized. I'll give you that at 6'1". But again, I keep harking back who Ron Rivera had in Carolina, who's more or less the same size. And a Shaq Thompson, a little bit heavier, right? But still about 6', 6'1", not that big. And they were able to find some success with him. So you put Jock in the same type of system. You keep the lineman off of him, which I think we had with the four we had, and you have a plug and play guy that can replace Kevin Pierre-Louis, who last year was a high graded linebacker who's now gone, right? So he gives you a lot of added, to me, benefit that makes your other linebackers better versus a Collins where you put him on the line, you can do this other stuff. We don't need him on the line. We have Chase Young and Montez Sweat, who's going to play about 80% of the snaps, right? So what do you do with Collins? You don't move Bostic. So I just think right now Jock is at 19, to me a safe pick, a plug and play player.
Right. And I'm with you. And those of you listening at home, I'm sure you're wondering, why haven't we talked about Micah Parsons? Well, the reason we haven't talked about him is because he's probably not going to be there at 19.
He should definitely be gone.
I don't want to waste your time, right? I want the show to be all about Washington football team draft, just players we're focused on. So we're not going to talk about him. Who we are going to talk about is another fringe round one linebacker that people seem to like him, but it's the same adage you keep hearing. It's his size, right? We're talking about Nick Bolton from Missouri, linebacker. So he's projected to go the end of round one, maybe the beginning of round two. He's around 5'11", 232, pretty decent arm size. Actually, I think it was like 31, which is pretty good for him. But again, he's small. He reminds you of like London Fletcher or something. But he's been a starter for 2 years. He's one of 4 SEC defenders to have double-digit tackles each of the last 2 seasons, which is really impressive. And another guy on that list we're going to talk about in a little bit. But let's focus on Bolton for now. I'm going to flip it around and go to Rod first. What do you like about Bolton? Do you think he'd be a fit here? Is he another plug and play guy that can play from day one, be a Mike?
No, he's your granddaddy's linebacker. He's your old school. I'm a Mike. That's what I am. Give me 2 years. I could probably control the defense. I'm going to stuff everything in the middle of the field, and I'm going to chase down everything in alleys. I don't think he's plug and play. I think it takes him a year. You throw him out there to get acclimated to the speed. I saw some times in Missouri, he was behind. I mentioned the Alabama game with him, but also in Georgia, there were times where he looked great in run fit. And there were times, unfortunately, where he just looked a step behind. And once linemen got their hands on him due to his size, he just never recovered, right? I love his motor, but I just don't see him day one, plug him in at 19, he go get you something, right? You have to have, in my opinion, every other piece around him has to be slightly above great for Nick Bolton to excel year one. I just don't see him as our pick.
Definitely. I'm going to throw it over to Donovan. Donovan, what do you like about Bolton? What don't you like? And I guess the the caveat to that question, I guess the other thing I'd add on is what's the development time for a linebacker usually? Is it a hard position to pick up normally? I mean, I know you didn't play linebacker, but you probably have some idea, like, does it take a long time? Is it something you can pick up right away? Because I know like edge rusher, for example, I don't think edge rusher is nearly as complicated as linebacker personally, but maybe you can talk more on that.
Yeah, I do like Nick Bolton. He's a thumper, right? And I think, when we talk about Jock, where you could flex him out into coverage more and use him in sub packages, I think in the same way people talk about how important and how helpful a good D line is for linebackers, that same is said about for the rest of the linebacker unit for a guy that can, is specific for their area. If you've got a great coverage guy, it does make the job easier for the other 2 linebackers in that 4-3. I like him a lot. He's physical. He played in the SEC, which is a good uptick for him. But for linebacker itself, I think a lot of it comes with what we see in Zaven Collins. How it's like you said, Adam, instinctual, but there's an awareness, right? There's more than just instinct. You got to be aware and a smart, intelligent player. I'm not saying Nick Bolton isn't, but I think with linebacker, the hardest thing, especially going to the NFL, where everything's a little more complex, moves faster, is you have to be able to react and to learn very quickly. And so that's usually where, and it's not a knock on guys, they can't learn quickly. Sometimes it's just a lot, it's overwhelming sometimes going to the NFL. And so I think with linebacker position, especially middle linebacker where Bolton would play, he's going to have to absorb a lot of information really quickly on top of playing guys that are now NFL caliber O-linemen, running backs, tight ends, things like that.
You got us on mute, Nate.
My bad. You can hear me now. So I was gonna say, remember Isaiah Simmons? Isaiah Simmons was supposed to be a linebacker. He's supposed to be a safety.
Right.
It takes a long time, right? When you go to an NFL team, you meet with one position at a time. It's not like you're meeting with linebackers one day and safeties the next day and defensive edge the next day. You know, you're learning one position, and linebacker already takes a while. So you have to be patient. I agree with Rod. I agree with Donovan. I think it is going to take a little bit of time for Bolton. I think he's one of the best play diagnosers in this linebacker class, though. I think he has great vision. He doesn't have a lot of false steps like we like to talk about. He has a smaller tackle radius, though, because he is smaller, and that's never going to change. Okay, so what that means, though, it's the so what. What does that mean? It means he has less margin for error. He has less like room to make a mistake. Zaven Collins can blow up a tackle and maybe miss a tackle, but because he's so big, sometimes he can get away with that. I don't think Nick Bolton can do that. So Adam, let's close up on Nick Bolton. What are your closing thoughts on him? And then we'll go to another SEC linebacker everyone's hyping up right now.
Yeah, and again, this is a guy I've just spent a lot of time watching, and I agree. I don't put him in that Collins Parsons range, but I have caught slack because I do like him as a better fit than JOK, because he might not be a day fit at Mike, a day one plug and play. But you mentioned London Fletcher. It's not that I'm seeing the game, but I'm seeing that compact frame. Just quickly, just what I saw: instincts, ability to drop into coverage, disciplined eyes, always focus on the ball, deceptive speed, and understanding pursuit angles. That is what he does really well. So coming out of the college level, I feel like a lot of these prospects have to be taught this. So I think that he's a classic overachiever. And that Alabama game showed it. When he stuffed Najee Harris multiple times, I think Najee Harris is going to be a stud on the next level. And just go look at that game. I think you can't just look at one game and, make your final decision. But to me, I'm a huge Alabama fan. So seeing that game and so much hype that I have for Harris, when I saw him put him on his ass those two times, that really made me a fan and wanted me to dig deeper. 19, rich. Definitely a little too rich for it, but man, doesn't mean he's not a guy that could come in and really do some damage, like with the right guys around him, like we talked about.
Yeah, no, I'm totally with you. And you guys know, maybe you don't know, my stance on like pick 19. Like I want to be super fluid and flexible. I don't have a specific position in mind until we get there, but I don't really want to take a linebacker at pick 19 unless I'm forced into it. I don't think it's a valuable position anymore. And I think the league tells you that by how much they pay linebackers and how few first round linebackers you see anymore. Now it can pan out, right? You look at the Bucks. I mean, they had some excellent, first round linebackers that really worked for them. But anyway, I want to move on to another guy who is just gaining so much helium. Everyone is talking about him, and I'm going to try not to butcher his first name because I've heard it used a few different ways. It's either Jamin or Jermaine or something like that. Jamin Davis. He's a linebacker out of Kentucky. And he's getting a draft buzz right now that he could go on day one, and that's coming directly from NFL orgs. And they're passing that along to Daniel Jeremiah and Mel Kiper and Todd McShay. And those are guys I follow. I don't follow them so much for their evaluations. No offense to them. I follow them for their insider info. If I want tape grinders, if I want guys I study, it's going to be like Dane Brugler. It's going to be guys like that, Greg Cosell. But anyway, so that tells you though that like they are interested in this guy, and the reason they're interested is because he's a freak athlete. He had the second highest RAS score among all the linebackers we talked about. And you're talking about like a 98th percentile athlete, just a freak of nature, just ran he ran under a 4.5 for a linebacker, I believe, which is just insane because he weighs like 230, 240. But that's a long-winded way of saying Jamin Davis is everyone wants to talk about him. So we're going to get into him because I've even seen some people saying he could go at pick 19 to Washington. And I kind of want to talk that out. And then after that, we're going to get into day 2, day 3, and we're going to have all you guys make a case for a linebacker you like. But so let's start with Davis. Let's go to Rod. Rod, what do you think Davis is a first round linebacker? And I guess that's a relative term because it depends which part of
it depends on the team who wants him, right? He could be. Right. He could be. I think his pro day did exactly what pro days and combines do. They make you go back and look at the tape, right? I think it was actually like a 4.39 or something like that. So he was under a 4.4 unofficially, right? But you go back and look at his tape, man, and to me, you see a linebacker that's just having fun. To me, he enjoys the game. He's just flying around. He's raw, in my opinion. He's a raw prospect. He's just having fun with it. Way too many. To me, he's the linebacker that's just not accountable with his feet right now. He's false steps all over the place. He's taking 2 steps back to go 2 steps forward. But because he's so fast, it makes up for it, right? It doesn't look as bad as it would maybe at the next level where linemen are on you or tight ends are on you or wide receivers are on you. But for right now, I think the pro day did exactly what it should do, make you go back and look at the tape. Do I think he's a day one? No. Could he go early day two? Because I see him in that 33 to 38 range. Absolutely. But it makes you go back and look at his tape and say, what do we have here? And you, like you said, a freak athlete.
Yeah, I'm with you. Donovan, what's something you don't like about Davis? What's a con? Because I know you were about to say something awesome about it, but like, what's something you don't like? Because I feel like we always talk about the good, never the bad.
Yeah, I'll be honest. I've seen a lot of his hype coming up, and while this may be, a little weird, it is weird that, this hype has kind of come out of nowhere. Not to say he's not a good player. So the con is kind of this rise of, okay, he was a good linebacker at Kentucky. He was a good linebacker in the SEC. Why are we just now hearing about him, right? Why we heard about Jock all the time. I heard about Micah Parsons before he opted out. Zaven Collins was kind of a riser, but as the season went on. So I'd say the con with Jamin Davis is just kind of this late rise, right? And that's not something you typically hear, but it is something to kind of make you go, wait a second. I think I need to go back and take a look, like you guys were saying about the pro days. So it's not that much of a knock. And again, I got to look into it more because again, he's at a meteoric rise. But he's a guy I think that has a lot of talent. So there's not too many knocks I can say about him right now.
Yeah, I'm with you. The helium is always a question mark, right? So Adam, I guess I'll turn it over to you. Like, and I know you really like Collins, right? Collins is a top 15 guy for you. I don't want to put words in your mouth, but how would you like, as far as like tiers, rankings, how close is he to Zaven Collins? Cause I'm sure a lot of fans are probably wondering that. And I know what you're going to say, but I'm sure people would like to hear it. So go ahead.
Closer to the Jabril Cox range. I have Cox. I still like Cox better than Davis, with him. I see like a lot of potential there and a lot of speed, but I don't see that speed when he's going into the wash, when he's going in, trying to navigate through these tackles, blockers, tight ends. I don't see it. I see the athletics, I see this and that, but when I look at the tape, I'm just not seeing it. So, I've heard even, mid 30s, honestly, with the draft prospects in this class, I'd be uncomfortable taking him earlier than the third round. We talk about Cox. I think that's a guy from multiple levels. I've seen different things from. I just have not seen enough from Davis. There's just not enough there. And sometimes when players bust out into the scene a little late, it's like, okay, they're rising, but sometimes they hit their ceiling at that point. So I'll be curious to see where he goes, what they asked him to do. But if you're trying to get him in to be a day one, will plug and play, I don't see it. I think he needs a lot of work. And as far as his whole, read and react, I see him thinking way too much. His eyes are moving a lot. So that's not something that I like in a linebacker, in the top 2 rounds.
Something you'll hear me pound the table for a lot if you follow me, and you don't have to follow me because I might be annoying, but I talk a lot about breakout age and people are like, what is that? What does that mean? Like, I don't care about a metric unless you can tell me what it means. And I think it applies to almost any position. When it comes to Jamin Davis, my question is, he redshirted, so he didn't play his first year. Okay. And usually that's kind of like, why? And then after that, he was a backup linebacker for 2 years before he became the starter this year. So he's a 1-year starter. How is he not good enough to be a starter for those other 2 years? Like, it's Kentucky. Who is holding him back from being a starter? Okay, that's a big question. And that's why I go back to breakout age. I want to see you at a young age, 18 and 19, beating up on players that are your age or older than you, because that shows me how it's going to go in the NFL a lot of times. That's why I care about it, right? If you're, like Dwayne Eskridge and you're 24 years old and you're beating up on defensive backs when you're way older than all of them, that's not as impressive as 18-year-old, 19-year-old like Micah Parsons. So that's a question for me. And then I guess his coverage skills, it's a work in progress, right? His coverage skills are okay. Everyone talks about the big plays, the interceptions and blah, blah, blah. All 3 of his interceptions were thrown right to him. He didn't do anything. Go back and watch the tape. I mean, he didn't really do anything special there. So that's another thing. But what I want to do now is transition to go more into your day 2 and day 3 guys, depending on where you have them ranked. And I'm going to speed it up a little bit because we wanted to hit the big prospects and go into more detail, but I'm going to kind of change segments and go into make your case. Okay. So I'm going to give you each a minute to kind of make your case for a guy you really like on day 2. Okay. So we're talking, or day 3 for that matter, just a prospect you really like. And if someone takes yours, that's okay. You can piggyback on it, but I'm just kind of curious, like who you have. So I'll start with Donovan here, because I always start with Rod or Adam. Donovan, is there someone on day 2 or day 3 that you're like standing on the table, just like yelling at the heavens that this is the guy who needs to go to Washington football team? Is there a linebacker like that?
Yeah, there was a guy earlier on. I'm kind of cooled off on him a little bit on him. I mean, I'm born and bred a Buckeye fan. Baron Browning. He is a really good athlete. My concern as I've watched him more and more over the past few weeks is his awareness and instincts, right? And that's not something that can always be coached. You can always learn a defense, but if you can't react how it's supposed to, mold around you, there's not much you can do. I think he's a guy that was on a lot of day 2 radar for people. And now he maybe is, top of day 3, maybe bottom of day 2, right? And so he's a guy that I'm looking at as, are you willing to spend a day 2 or day 3 pick on him, knowing that he might not be able to come in and start right away, when you can do that in round 1 or round 2 with a different guy?
Yeah, I think you nailed it. He was the number 1 RAS scored among all linebackers. He had the highest athletic score of any linebacker, including Parsons, including Jock. So he was amazing. But yeah, there's questions about his instincts, his coverage ability. So I'm going to throw it over to Rod. Rod, who's a guy on day 2 that you really like, that you want to pound the table for?
Yeah, if I'm pounding the table for a guy, it's Monty Rice for me out of Georgia. I love his speed. I love what he does. My bad, Adam. I see you. I see you going. He's my guy.
It's okay.
When you watch the tape on him, he flies around. All right. Now he has some things to work on. I totally agree. And that's why he's not a day 1 in my opinion. He's been very inconsistent in his 3 years at Georgia. He shined on tape, and in some games he's just been like the Florida game stands out to me, where he's almost like, if he's not there, he's a non-factor. But I think when you put him at the next level, I think you have a guy like a Cole Holcomb that you could find somewhere in the 4 to 6 range round. In that first year, he could show flashes, and then the second year, I think once the game slows down for him, where he really hits another edge, another level. And that's going to come with coaching, from what I see on tape. So Monty Rice would be my guy that I would make a case for, I think, in day 2, day 3.
That's a good one. I didn't even. Yeah, I like that actually. Nice.
What are the odds? What are the odds
Yeah,
me and him both are going to talk about?
That's a good sign, right? That's a good
hey,
sign. Okay, Adam, you got to go with option B then, buddy. Who do you have that you like?
There's a lot, but because we were talking about the Ohio State guys, and I actually like Pete Warner. We're talking about, he's not the middle linebacker, that's for sure, but I just like him in this unit. I like his ability to drop into coverage. I can see him in that, Washington has those 2 third-round picks. That's a sweet spot, especially that second, third round. That might, is he going to be available that late? I'm not sure. But like I said, that 6'3", 240 range, I see him playing a little bit smaller coming to the NFL, because they like to stack him up a little big in college. So I think, more in that 230 range. But I really like him matching up with Holcomb, and, hopefully a middle linebacker that they go in round 1, because I think, if you can solidify that and have him, maybe take, even if he doesn't even take the whole year, but to get on the field, to really work behind these guys, I think Pete Warner, man, that's definitely a guy, if you can grab in the 3rd round, man, he could just do some damage with this Washington front.
We could just talk about Ohio linebackers. I think there's 4 of them that are prospects this year.
Another one too.
I'm not a huge fan of 2 of them, but we don't have to talk. We don't have to talk trash about them. I guess a guy I've talked about him so much. I mean, almost to the point where I'm sick of talking about. But like you talked about Jabril Cox. I mean, so I'll talk about like his weaknesses first, because we should talk about that. He struggles with run fits. He's not a downhill defender. He's not a thumper. He gets, a lot of times when he goes for a tackle, it's like he gets pushed back, which isn't great, right? He's probably, I would say he's like an average a run defender. Okay. But what he doesn't have in run defense, he makes up for with coverage. So I mean, he's the best coverage linebacker there's been the past 3 seasons in college football. Right. Fact. I mean, there's no one better. He has over 600 snaps playing in the slot, flexed out, playing in the slot. That's more than the top 5 linebackers in this class combined. So he has a wealth of experience. He can flex with tight ends. He can flex out there with wide receivers or running backs. And I think that's something that's huge for him. I mean, he has a nose for the ball, right? He has a ton of turnovers, a ton of sacks, a ton of tackles for loss. So he is also a good pass rusher, I should mention. So he's what I call a all downs linebacker. He's not just like a 3rd down running back that just plays on certain snaps. He can play 1st down, 2nd down, 3rd down. So that's something I like. So I guess we can transition and talk about some of your sleepers, your day 3 or fringe day 2 guys, maybe someone that no one is talking about. or maybe something else we forgot to mention, because we could just talk about Ohio State linebackers the whole time. But I'm sure there's a few guys that we haven't touched on. Maybe some projects, I guess, is what I'm kind of looking for. So I'll throw it back to Adam this time. Adam, is there any guys like on day 3 or kind of fringy, or maybe even some small school guys that no one is talking about? Because I know of like 1 or 2 that you've talked about, but I'm sure like the audience would love to hear it. So go ahead.
Well, the one name that comes up, late round guy, but I do like him, is Riley Cole from South Alabama. I tried to sit down with him. It really, it almost happened, but like I said, it's been crazy this year. But I just like him as, you talk about a guy you want to come in and be that special teams leader. He's going to come in, I think it was a 6'2", 240, not the quickest, that 4.6 range, but, as that late round guy, like I said, it was hard with the small schoolers this year, but Riley Cole, he really jumped out as a guy that, he won't get lost in the wash. When if he's facing contact, he's always going forward. The running back, he's never getting run over, but coverage is a concern. So, you mentioned a guy like Cox. That's a guy I definitely think Washington could use more. But, you're talking about someone late round and, could even go undrafted. Riley Cole, South Alabama. He's definitely a guy that I think, we should keep an eye on, because everyone gets caught up in especially Washington fans, with rounds 1 through, even 5 to a point. But, 6th, 7th rounds undrafted. We've seen as Washington fans how many, blue chip guys really just come out of nowhere, because you have to understand, just because their level of competition where they went to school, that doesn't necessarily mean their talent. There's a lot of things that factor in, especially when it comes to being a student athlete. We all know, I never played myself, but I used to go to recruiting trips to Michigan, to Penn State, with a lot of friends that I played with. And no matter how good they were, it always came down to, the fit academically, and sometimes it just doesn't work. But no, I think Riley Cole is definitely someone to keep an eye on for sure.
Riley Cole. Yeah. You saw him a little bit at the Senior Bowl.
A little bit. Yeah.
Let's flip it over to Donovan, and let's keep this quick, because I got to wrap up in a little bit. But Donovan, who's like a day 3 sleeper that you like? One of those fringy guys that could be good.
Yeah, I think he's definitely from the project, but I've been harping on him for a little while. Is Charles Snowden out of Virginia.
Okay.
He's a guy 6'6", true 6'6", by the way, about 240, 250. He had some bad ankle or foot injuries in the past season in Virginia. And so, that is a concern, but I think he's a guy that, you can kind of line him up on the edge. He can cover. He's athletic enough to do that. You just got to look at that injury concern. And outside of that, he wasn't the flashiest player, but he's got the tools to potentially develop into a decent player, a decent, rotational piece.
I like it. What about you, Rod? I know you have a guy you had in mind here.
Yeah, so it's one of the first years where Alabama linebacker isn't being talked about in some time. And my guy would be Dylan Moses. Had the injury his junior year, but I think had he been healthy, he comes out after his junior year, and he's probably a late day 1 pick, right? Following after the Rashad Evans of the world. And I think that's what he is. If you look at last year, what you did with Mac Wilson, the 5th rounder that went to the Cleveland Browns, and how he was able to be a spot player for them. That's what I see Dylan Moses as. He doesn't process as well as I would like him to. He's another guy that spots on there. But one thing about him that I truly like is that he goes 110 miles an hour. Right? You're talking about a guy 8th grade that had a college scholarship to LSU because he ran like a 4.3 or 4.4, something stupid. And then, like I said, his freshman year, he's all freshman SEC. So he's doing everything that you want to see done as a linebacker. And then that pedigree holds something to me. You know what you're getting out of an Alabama linebacker from a tenacity standpoint. And I think he has all the tools, but he has to just stay on the field. And that, to me, will probably what knocks him to that day 3. And if we have one of our 7th rounders that I think 244, 246, I would definitely throw towards a linebacker that you can put out on special teams and kind of just have him on the roster and move along with him.
Okay. Hold that thought, Rod. How am I doing on time? How much time do we have left? Would you say?
We have 3 minutes.
3 minutes. Perfect. Okay. So I'm going to call audible a little bit here. I'm going to call this rapid fire, right? I'm just going to shoot off a few quick questions, throw them to each individual like really fast, and just give me a short answer. So Rod, I told you to put a pin in that thought before. If Moses didn't get hurt, because that's a big question with him. If he didn't get hurt and he played, where would he go in the draft? Like, what are we talking about? Is he a day 2 pick? Is he a
he's a day 2. He's a day 2. He's a 25 to 30, 40 guy.
Okay. Yeah. And I agree. I think like his tape pre-injury was fantastic. I think it was really comparable to some of the best in the business, to be honest. I think he could be a first rounder, to be honest, with it, if he never got injured. So I guess I'm going to throw it out. What's another question I like here? Which out of all the linebackers, who is your favorite pass rusher? So I said, when I mean pass rusher, is it, whether he's blitzing or sometimes he plays Sam, sometimes he plays on the edge. Who is your best pass rusher, Donovan? Who's a guy you're liking for that?
Yeah, I really like Zaven Collins.
Okay.
I know we pop on him, but size, speed, proven, success, but rushing the passer, I like him a lot.
Yeah, and he had one of the highest pass rushing grades in the country this year. He had a higher grade than the top 5 edge defenders in this class, which is really interesting. But again, it's a limited sample. It's just 1 year and a limited amount of snaps anyway. Adam, who besides Jabril Cox, who's another linebacker that you really like their coverage skills? Because like if you can't play coverage at linebacker,
Right.
you might as well just get off the field because it's a passing league now and you have to be able to play on all 3 downs. So who's another guy?
And I think that's why I keep getting gravitated towards Zaven Collins, because there's a lot of prospects in this class that are just insufficient in that area, and that's why we keep talking about Cox. And I wonder in years past if the level of linebacker play, maybe he wouldn't be quite as high, because I think Cox is going to go second round this year, and he might not have other drafts because the need for coverage linebacker. So short answer, I don't see. And even talk about Cole late round guys, I don't see a lot of linebackers that I trust in this class, and that's why I guess I'm so high on Collins. We talk about Parsons and his speed is great and he can play all positions. But personally, like you're talking about balance, 4 interceptions, 4 sacks last year for Collins. We talk about level of competition, but in an 11-day period, 1 interception to seal the game, then the second to 97-yard touchdown to seal the game in double overtime. Those are clutch points, and they were done through coverage. So no matter what, to me, it'll always come back to Zaven Collins.
And I'm going to throw, I know this is off topic, but so Cox didn't run, right? He didn't, he said he was injured at his pro day.
Hamstring.
I think the reason he didn't, I think he just didn't run because he was going to run slow. I never buy those injuries. Like almost always they know what they're going to run and it's better just to not do it. So like another question for me with him is kind of like athleticism, closing speed. He's good in coverage, but he's not the fastest guy. He's not going to run.
No.
I would guess he runs like a 4.6, low 4.6, maybe 4.7. So
me too.
But I'm going to try to pick up the pace of it. I know I got like a minute left here, Rob, before I throw it back to you. So let's go. So I guess who's your favorite thumper in this class? And when I say thumper, I mean a guy who plays on first and second down at least, and just he has a nose for the ball. He knows where to go. He's always in the right run fit, and he's a finisher. Is there someone that stands out to you for that superlative?
Who are you going to?
You, Rod. Sorry.
Oh, Nick Bolton.
Oh,
Hands down. Yeah, he's my.
down.
I'm not even gonna waste any time. Nick Bolton.
Yeah, no, I'm with you there. That's perfect. Let's see. I'm gonna finish off here with Donovan. Donovan, if you're forced to take a linebacker at pick 19 against my better judgment, you're the GM. You make the call. You tell me to shut up, Nate. Like I'm making the pick. And Dan Snyder, off his yacht, he calls up and he says, "I need another LeVar Arrington. I need a guy." I want a linebacker at pick 19. I want to reinvigorate this franchise. Who is your guy? Who is it? You have to pick a linebacker, and it can't be Micah Parsons.
Yeah. As much as Jock has risen for me, it's like Adam said, it's going to come back to Zaven Collins. I think defense with him is a piece that can make it as complete as possible. Add another safety. I think it's always comes back to Zaven Collins.
Okay, it sounds like we're just a Zaven Collins fan club here. I think I might be the lowest on him. I kind of see him as a first rounder, but like end of the first round type of guy. But there is a lot of interest around the league. But we don't want to talk about Collins anymore because we just wax poetic. But I think we covered most of the linebackers. I think we did a good job. I'm gonna throw it back to Rod here so he can close out, and we'll give you guys a chance to kind of plug your work as well. So
we'll close out. But before we jump in, we're going to jump into the war room, right? So the gentlemen here, they've done their research. What we did, we've collected an exercise here. We've collected like 100 different mock drafts, right? We've done a little frequency table on who 3 players are assigned to the Washington football team at pick 19 the most, right? With those 3, Nate will put on his GM hat, right? So he will essentially become Dan Snyder with the ultimate call, and we will make a case for 3 players here that have been associated with the Washington football team the most at pick 19. I'm talking about offensive tackle Tevin Jenkins, safety Tre'von Moridge out of TCU, and Jock. So as much as we've talked about Zaven Collins and how Jock is not the guy, Jockey's been associated with the Washington football team the most in various draft sites, right? So before we get started, a little backstory on pick 19. The Washington football team has never picked at pick 19. In the history of picking first rounders, never picked at pick 19. We know what the last 5 were, how we got our stout defensive line to this point, right? And then also another thing about pick 19, the total value of that is $13.8 million. So that rookie this year will be on the hook for $2.5 million. All right. So I think that's when you start looking at that pick and what player you wanted that pointed in, basing it off what the value is at linebacker, safety, or offensive tackle, which I think we can all say offensive tackle is probably the priority of those 3 positions. And if I'm speaking out of turn, speak up. I think offensive tackle holds the most weight, right? So Adam has Tre'von Morridge, Donovan has offensive tackle as a previous offensive tackle, and I have the luxury of repping my man Jock, who I won at 19 anyway. All right, we will put 10 minutes on the clock, gentlemen, in alphabetical order. We'll go Adam, Donovan. I'll figure out with Jock, and then we will leave it to Nate to make the decision if we can't come to one ourselves. We do not have to take the entire 10 minutes. If it's an easy conversation, then it's an easy conversation to make the pick. All right. And hopefully we'll do this week to week till we build up a full mock draft that we can reference during our draft party episode that we hope to have go live during the course of the draft. All right. So, gentlemen,
all right, yeah, I'm off the yacht. Go ahead.
The Washington football team is on the clock. 10 minutes. Adam, on you.
Tre'von Moehrig, free safety, TCU. He's that single high player. The safety can change momentums in games. Bottom line, tail of the tape, doesn't bite on misdirection. Ideal single high safety, rarely is behind the ball. Very good wrap-up tackler. Might need some work in the field, but field leader who knows how to direct traffic and coverage. Ball hawk, always flowing the ball. Fluid black pedal. Showed he can be effective. What I see for him is that 4-3 cover corner. The 4-3 system is the free safety. We'll see more with William Jackson, who was just signed with Washington. We'll see more opportunities for interceptions, more turnovers. His best value is still in that 20 to 25 range. So we're still getting pretty good value at 19. As far as year 1 goes, I think he could come in and see time as sub package. They're doing a lot of 3 safeties. I can see that. But like we talked about earlier, Landon Collins is going to take time. I don't see him coming in right away. So having that free safety that can really come in, get through camp preseason, I can see Moehrig with that role. Again, with the safety situation, Cam Curl is clearly the better strong safety with Washington. 2020, he'll reportedly not be on board with playing linebacker at all. So when he comes back, it's going to be questionable with the role. Curl could play some free safety. Kendall Fuller can chip in, but do we really want to do that? We want to have our key players in the best positions that they can help this defense. So I think if you have Tre'von Moehrig at 19, he's the guy that they could go through camp, him and Curl together with that front. I think that's a guy that we could see starting free safeties solidified for the next, 7 to 10 years of Washington.
Yeah, I mean, I like the sound of that. All right, Donovan, what do you got? I know you like to talk big uglies, so who's the guy you like and why?
Evan Jenkins is the definition of that, man. He's definitely for the lineman what they should be. A nasty style of play, but also a nasty mentality, right? He doesn't just do the dirty work. He loves doing it, which is a huge plus for any position, but especially O-line. He's 6'6", 320. He's got the size and he's a mauler. He's got the strength to succeed in the NFL. Dozens of career starts under his belt. He's mainly started at right tackle, but he started at left tackle and guard as well. And I think he could come in and immediately start at left guard. I really do. Now, I don't think Schweitzer is that big of a problem on the O-line. He played well, especially as the season went along. But I think Jenkins come in and start right away there and be a good caliber player and develop into a really high caliber player. He reminds me of Brandon Sheriff a little bit. When we drafted him originally to play right tackle and he kicked into right guard and he was stellar at that. If he comes in and starts at left tackle over Cornelius Lucas, there's going to be some growing pains. I think there will be. He's a guy that has some of the things in pass pro, but man, if you add him to that at left tackle or left guard even, that run game and Antonio Gibson are going to be very thankful. I'm telling you, the run game is going to soar. Again, pass pro, there's going to be some growing pains, but O-line is not necessarily a position of need, but especially with Sheriff's kind of impending departure, Morgan Moses getting up in age, the left guard Schweitzer is not the long-term answer. He's a good stopgap player. I think this is not an immediate need, but it's not a luxury pick by any means. And this guy projects as someone that if he comes in and starts, going to be growing pains. If he plays behind Lucas Freer at left tackle, I think he come in and be a long-term, high-caliber starter, maybe not Pro Bowl. And especially with the kind of future of this O-line, with some guys departing here soon, some guys getting up in age, he is a guy I could see re-signing in the future.
Okay, I like that a lot too. You can never have enough big uglies. It's my personal experience as a yacht owner. All right, Rod, go ahead and make your case. Who do you got?
Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah. And I'll try to do that on purpose because I think he's the guy that's coming in at 19. All right. I said it earlier, right? We keep hearing, oh, we got to get creative. We got to get creative. No, we don't. He's a plug and play guy day one. I think he fits into that will position almost flawlessly for a team right here that's still looking for our identity at the second level, right? You look at our linebacker core outside of John Bostic, Cole Holcomb, and Khalil Hudson, who came on late in the season. You tell me who's 4, 5, and 6. I'll wait. You can't. That's what I'm saying, right? So we don't have a guy right now. Our linebacker core right now is very, very skinny. We're injury away from having to pick up a free agent come week 4, week 5, and we have the opportunity, if he's there at 19, to grab a guy that can guard a wide receiver, can play with running backs, and also be over a tight end and force a little wreckage, right? You look at what he did as a passer rating. I think he only allowed, it was a 61.8 completion rate percentage at the collegiate level, right? That would already tie him for the best on our team. With Cole Holcomb, who was at 61.8%, right? So you take Bostic out, look what you can do if you have both them in as linebackers. Look at the versatility and the flexibility you have without Bostic on the field, and still bringing in a Jimmy Moreland and what he can do if we need to go like a 4-2-5 type package, right? With Holcomb, and you're not losing anything because both Jock and Holcomb have Mike experience, right? He's done it at Notre Dame in situations, and that's what Cole Holcomb was year one. Starting off, he was more so inside versus being out. So it gives you a lot bit of flexibility there. 70.3 NFL passer rating allowed. That will be second best against a Cole Holcomb. So again, you're looking at a guy that when you put him in at the linebacker position will give you everything you need. You don't have to find schemes to put him in play. You literally can line him up in a 4-3 base, put him as your will linebacker, and if they come out in 11 personnel or anything of that sort, he can literally just flex out over a wide receiver and still be as dangerous, right? Talking about a guy that's probably at 4.4, 4.5 speed. Didn't run in this pro day, so I'm sure that's raising eyes, and we keep hollering about his undersized, but to me, that's his only knock. And again, in the position where everything is changing, size on the outside to me doesn't matter as much if the mentality is there at linebacker position, and he has it.
Wow. Yeah, that was a compelling case as well. Okay. I'm off my yacht. I'm paying attention. This is the first time I've checked in on the team in a few months because I've been kind of busy, but that's okay. Obviously, I'm going to delegate the power of decision making to Ron because he's kind of getting on me about, bugging people and meddling. People say I do that. I don't. Anyway, so I think you all made a great case. If I can take off my Dan Snyder cap for a second, Morig, right? I think he could go the end of round 1. So with that being said, like, I don't think I would want him there because of that. I think he could go a little bit later, even though he's awesome. And I wouldn't be mad because you're talking about a ball hawk. Ball hawks are really valuable. But I'm going to eliminate that one just because, I think he's going to go a little bit later. That's just me personally. Then it's between Jock and it's between Tevin Jenkins. I like them both too. I like all three players, obviously. I think you made some really good points with Jock about coverage, Rod, and how he's so valuable because you can play a base defense, but basically play a nickel as well. That's awesome. I mean, that gets me really excited personally. But I worry about how to project him and how it's going to transfer at the next level. I worry about these hybrid players. I think he can do it all. I think he could do anything and he would be a great fit. I worry about our coach's ability to be flexible with him, to develop him. That's what I worry about. I think they're kind of old school and I would worry about something like that. But on the other side, they did that with Cam Curl, right? They were flexible with him. So, but that being said, it's gotta be Tevin Jenkins for me. I think Jenkins, you're looking at a guy at the minimum, he can be your swing tackle or your guard or something, but I think he's a franchise, like, left tackle, to be honest. I know he played some right tackle. He played some left tackle. He played some guard in college. But he's just a guy. I don't think he's that different from Darrisaw, to be honest. I think Darrisaw is better, but I think a lot of guys, including Brandon Thorne, who I would consider an awesome O-line evaluator, probably the best in the world. He has Jenkins number 2 in his class, right behind Sewell. So that caught my attention big time. I know Dane Brugler is really big on Jenkins. I just think he fits with our scheme. And Lucas, for as good as he is, he's a journeyman. He's hard to project. He hasn't been successful before. He was successful last year, but he was awesome in pass protection, right? Which is what I care about the most. He wasn't good at run blocking though. And I know Jenkins is better. So that kind of caught my attention. So yeah, I'm gonna have to go with Jenkins here, but you guys all made a great and compelling case. So I'm gonna turn it back over to Rod.
There we go. So Jenkins will be our round 119 pick. All right. So again, just getting better. There's nothing wrong with getting better at a position as a strength. So Jenkins will be our first pick. We'll pick that up again with a following episode. Again, so closing out here, gentlemen. First, I want to thank Adam and Donovan for being amazing guests tonight. Your insight has been much appreciated, and I think you guys really did your homework. Right? Sorry, Adam, I stole Monty.
Oh, it's
from you.
okay.
But hey, that's a Georgia boy, so I always like Alabama for you. I kind of rock with those guys. So we'll close out. Before we close out, guys, gentlemen, if you want to plug anything that you're doing currently, here's your opportunity. Adam, you up first.
Okay. Yeah.
While he fixes that, Donovan, you do.
Sorry about that. Yeah, you go ahead, Donovan. Fixing my malfunctions over here. You go ahead, bro.
No worries. I've been working with Josh Taylor a lot with the Capital Watch football team, Twitter page, Burgundy blog. And I'm on Twitter at DonnieMac98. And right now I'm just kind of diving into this, getting my feet wet, and just enjoying this process, man. Enjoying this process. We're going to hype on those O-linemen a lot. Trust me.
Guys, thanks for having me on. It was a great opportunity just to, really chop it up with some guys who, really know ball. But again, like I said in the beginning, we started in January, our new website. I have a small team finally that's helped me with, the whole process. But again, burgundyandgoldreport.com. What we've developed in January is our NFL draft prospect cards where we have fits to Washington. You go on our site, iPhones, iPads, PCs. It's a one-touch feature if you've got the iPhones or anything like that. You open up the card, it gives you a highlight reel, it gives you your fit in Washington, it gives you your full evaluation. We do not evaluate any prospect that we watch less than 6 to 8 games with, and we do not see his fits in Washington. So again, burgundyandgoldreport.com, come check us out.
There it is, man. We will link both these guys' information down in the show notes here, man. I think we had an amazing episode. I think this was a perfect complement to our linebacker episode that we did last week. If you haven't watched that, that's also linked before. This is like another chapter in our overall scheme for the Washington football team draft day series leading up to the NFL draft, April 29th through May 1st. If you haven't catch on now while we're still moving. Nate, I figure we'll figure out who we're doing next week. But again, at the end of the day, it'll be a great conversation nonetheless. All right. For Nate, I am Rod. Thanks for watching.